The camping trip started as a spontaneous idea, born from boredom and a flurry of half-serious group chat suggestions. 5 of us, Danny, his girlfriend Clara, Mark, Steph and I, decided to escape the noise of the city and head deep into the woods. Danny promised it was the perfect spot for stargazing. By the time we parked the car and hiked to the clearing, the sun had dipped below the tree line, leaving us in the soft glow of twilight. The first few hours were idyllic. We pitched our tents, built a fire, and laughed as Danny struggled to roast marshmallows without charring them to ash. Clara strummed gentle tunes on her guitar, while the rest of us leaned back, marveling at the night sky. The stars were brighter than I had ever seen, and for a moment, it felt like nothing could disrupt the peace. But around midnight, the atmosphere shifted. Mark had wandered off to collect more firewood. When he returned, his face was pale, and he looked over his shoulder as if something had followed him back. "There's something weird out there," he said, dropping the wood in a pile. "I thought I saw someone standing between the trees." We all laughed, teasing him about watching too many horror movies, but Mark didn't join in. "I'm serious," he insisted, his voice low and tense. It was tall, too tall to be a person. Steph tried to lighten the mood, joking about Bigfoot taking a midnight stroll, but none of us could fully shake off the unease. Mark's nervous glances toward the forest set us on edge, even as the fire crackled cheerfully between us. Then we heard it, a low, guttural groan that seemed to echo from deep in the woods. The sound froze us in place. Danny forced a chuckle, claiming it was probably just an animal, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "What kind of animal makes that noise?" Clara whispered, gripping my arm. The forest had gone eerily silent. Even the crickets had stopped chirping. I told myself it was nothing, just the usual sounds of nature, but deep down, I felt the stirrings of fear. We tried to distract ourselves. Danny told a story from his childhood, and for a while, the tension eased. But then Steph stood up abruptly, her eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Hear what?" I replied, my heart pounding. "Footsteps," she said, pointing toward the trees. We all fell silent, straining to listen. At first, there was nothing. Then, faint but deliberate, the sound of leaves crunching underfoot reached us. The steps were slow and heavy, too deliberate to be caused by a small animal. Danny grabbed the flashlight and shone it toward the forest. The beam cut through the darkness but revealed only the dense undergrowth and the skeletal outlines of trees. "Hello?" he called out, his voice echoing. No response. Clara's hand tightened on my arm. "Maybe we should go back to the car," she murmured. I nodded, but Danny shook his head. "It's probably just some hiker messing with us," he said, though he didn't sound convinced. We began packing up reluctantly when we saw it. A figure emerged from the shadows just beyond the flashlight's reach. It was tall, inhumanly tall, with elongated limbs that bent at grotesque angles. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its face, I'll never forget its face. Hollow eyes stared at us, and its gaping mouth stretched far wider than should have been possible. For a moment, none of us moved. The fire crackled softly, the only sound in the suffocating silence. Then it stepped forward, its twisted form lurching toward us. "Run!" Mark screamed, shattering the stillness. Chaos erupted as we grabbed what we could and bolted down the trail. The creature's footsteps pounded behind us, loud and relentless. I didn't dare look back. When we finally reached the car, Danny fumbled with the keys, his hands trembling. We piled in, slamming the doors just as the creature appeared at the edge of the clearing. It stood there, its hollow eyes fixed on us, watching as we sped away into the night. The drive back was silent. No one dared speak. A heavy, suffocating tension had replaced the earlier laughter and camaraderie. We never discussed that night again. Whatever we saw in the woods remains a mystery, but it left an indelible mark on all of us. I haven't been camping since, and I doubt I ever will.